The stories behind our favorite movies aren't always so glamorous. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 things we learned from The Movies That Made Us Season 1. For this list, we're looking at the most surprising and intriguing facts we learned from the first season of the Netflix series The Movies That Made Us. Buckle up. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to check out the full song at the link below.
And it kills me so. I took so long, I'll never turn my back on you.
Number 10. Shooting took place during rewrites. Die Hard. There were quite a few hurdles to contend with when making the now super famous Die Hard action movie. And one of them was the extensive rewrites taking place during shooting.
It was devastating. It was my movie. It's like my baby. And somebody's taken my baby.
Steve D'Souza was working on revisions of Jeb Stuart's screenplay during the filming process. Fun fact, Jeb Stuart was fired from his own project for being unable to inject comedic elements into the script.
He's like had it with the pink, blue, green, yellow pages.
With only so long to complete production, the actors frequently found themselves reading from unfinished color-coded scripts. In fact, the scene where Hans Gruber meets John McClane and pretends to be a hostage was only added because the crew found out that Alan Rickman could do a pretty convincing American accent.
And at that moment, the audience gasps because he's going to fool Bruce Willis.
And all the way through, you think Bruce has made a terrible mistake.
Oops.
Number 9. Vestron Video and Emile Ardolino, Dirty Dancing. Getting a studio to invest in your movie takes a hell of a lot of perseverance, especially if you're making a girly movie in an era dominated by male-led action flicks. When writer Eleanor Bergstein and her producing partner Linda Gottlieb approached big-time Hollywood studios with Bergstein's script for Dirty Dancing, they were met with 42 rejection letters.
We'd run out of studios.
42 rejection letters. They were really afraid of a girls' movie.
Eventually, the straight-to-video company Vestron Video picked it up, and Emile Ardolino was hired as director. He had never made a feature film, and his movie-making experience was limited to a short dance documentary he created, although he did win an Oscar for it.
Emile had a complete panic attack. He was completely speechless.
Nevertheless, that didn't stop the movie from being a huge success. Number 8. Fox Nakatomi Plaza, Die Hard. The building that Die Hard is centered around is the heart and soul of the movie, so the filmmakers knew it had to be just right.
Fox Plaza was on the Fox lot. It was part of the Fox Corporation.
But they didn't have to look far to find the perfect spot. They simply used the studio's office building. 20th Century Fox's recently opened Fox Plaza. The crew occupied the floors that were still under construction, so when you see John McClane throwing bad guys into beams, it's all genuine. In fact, a lot of the action sequences were based specifically around the layout of the construction, including any tools left lying around by workers.
They didn't quite want us shooting off machine guns until after 5 o'clock.
Naturally, as it was still a working office building, there were a lot of noise complaints from its occupants. Number 7. The original Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters. It's hard to imagine any other grouping than Murray, Aykroyd, Ramis, and Hudson as the Spectre-slaying Ghostbusters, but the lineup and the storyline were almost very different.
It was me, John Belushi, and Eddie Murphy that we were supposed to be the original Ghostbusters.
Dan Aykroyd penned the script with himself, the late John Belushi, and Eddie Murphy in mind. Tragically, John Belushi passed away while Dan Aykroyd was writing the script, and Bill Murray was ultimately cast in the role intended for Eddie Murphy. The lineup wasn't the only thing that changed significantly. According to director Ivan Reitman, the original screenplay was far too complex and long, which led to substantial rewrites.
The story is way too outlandish. Outer space, sci-fi, monsters floating around in sort of spaceships.
Oh, how different things could have been.
When Harold came on as a writer, he just naturally said, well, I want to play a part in this. Nobody objected to that.
Number 6. John Candy Did a Favor, Home Alone. John Candy and John Hughes were two peas in a pod during the 80s and early 90s. And it may surprise some that superstar Candy's iconic role as the polka king of the Midwest in Home Alone was performed as a favor to his buddy Hughes.
When he's talking about his band, Kenosha Kickers, and the hits, and polka, 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 that's all improvisation.
He was paid just $414 for his time.
John Candy did that as a favor for us.
Sure, it's Christmas time.
It wasn't, some big salary, it was scale.
That's less than the pizza guy got. Candy spent 23 hours on set, so it's fair to say that the cast and crew got their money's worth. Well, at least he got to improvise most of his lines and play it his way, something Hughes hardly ever let anyone do. Number 5. Swayze and Grey didn't like each other. Dirty Dancing. Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey clashed on the set of Dirty Dancing for a number of reasons.
There were already some sparks flying back then.
One, they had a history of not liking each other from the movie Red Dawn, which they also co-starred in.
One night, she had low blood sugar. It was in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of all that mud, and she said, "I need a cheese platter."
Two, Swayze was a bit of a maverick, and Grey a bit of a diva, famously requesting a cheese platter right in the middle of filming and not doing any of her own stunts, something Swayze resented.
On camera, we basically see her learning to dance.
And three, Swayze was a dancer, and Grey wasn't. Ultimately, the animosity between the two helped fuel the passion between their characters. Number 4, Home Alone was shut down, sort of. Home Alone. Movie budgets are a delicate thing. Go over and the studio may just pull the plug. And that is exactly what happened on Home Alone.
John finally came and said they're having issues with the budget.
After agreeing on a budget with Warner Brothers, production started. But the production went over budget shortly after and it was shut down.
They announced that the movie was over. Oh no. We should pack up our stuff.
However, John Hughes did some questionable, not so legal, under-the-table dealings with Fox beforehand, allowing them to see the script and effectively pick up where Warner Brothers left off.
Legally, another studio isn't supposed to see a piece of material until it's legally in turnaround. And that didn't exactly happen.
There was even a moment where a Warner Brothers production manager was going room to room on set and telling everyone to pack up and go home, only to be followed moments later by executive producer Scott Rosenfeld telling them they were now a Fox property.
He'd tell people the film was over. I'd walk into an office and say, "It's not over. It's now a Fox movie. Don't worry about it."
Number 3, Ghostbreakers. Ghostbusters. Who you gonna call? Well, certainly not the Ghostbreakers, although that was almost the name of the movie.
We discovered that the name Ghostbusters was owned by a company called Filmation.
The team was unable to clear the title Ghostbusters due to a pre-existing property owned by Filmation, and it was a children's sitcom from the 70s called The Ghostbusters.
Columbia kept saying, "You gotta cover this, gotta cover it. Don't shoot it just as Ghostbusters. Call it Ghostbreakers too."
Because of this, the name of the movie was up in the air throughout production. In fact, many of the movie shots that featured the name Ghostbusters had to be shot twice with the name replaced with Ghostbreakers, just in case.
They took that sign down and they put another one up that said,
Ghostbreakers.
Thankfully, Frank Price, former CEO of Columbia Pictures, had recently moved to Universal, Filmation's parent company, and he helped seal the deal. Thanks, Frank. Number 2, Home Alone was filmed in a school gym. Home Alone. Finding the perfect house for Home Alone didn't come easy. The one that ultimately made it to the movie was far too small inside to fit the crew and equipment.
We walked into this gym and we were like, it's got a grid in the ceiling and it's big enough and we could build a house in here, I would think.
The solution? Build a soundstage and film the interior scenes at nearby abandoned New Trier High School, the same location used for scenes in Uncle Buck and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Aside from the exterior shots, almost everything in the movie was filmed in the school's gymnasium. Another set was built in the school's swimming pool to film the scene where Kevin's neighbor's house is flooded by the wet bandits. Movie magic.
So we built the set down at the shallow end.
Yes, that's correct.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Bruce Willis was a laughingstock. Die Hard. The 80s were an era dominated by action star beefcakes like Schwarzenegger and Stallone. So, when the star of Die Hard was revealed to be small-screen smartass Bruce Willis, best known for his role on Moonlighting, audiences were skeptical.
Hollywood's biggest star. And the thought was, at that moment, well, maybe that's the end of his movie career.
Even the crew had their doubts due to Willis's track record of box office bombs and reputation as a comedic star. Their worst fears were confirmed when the theatrical trailer for the movie hit the big screen and audiences laughed and booed.
There was this sense that Bruce Willis meant nothing at the box office.
Willis was even removed from promotional posters in fear that it may affect sales. Of course, the movie became a big success and made Bruce Willis a huge action star. the customer is not always right.
Most critics and audiences really liked the movie.
But it got critical acclaim. Usually action movies don't get critical acclaim.
And it was nominated for 4 Academy Awards.
Do you agree with our picks? Let us know in the comments. And hey, if you're a fan of the song playing right now, be sure to check out the music video for it right here.